Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome and thank you, Commissioner, and all of your team, both at the table and sitting in the room. I'll let you go ahead and introduce your team and jump right in.
Okay. So, well, first of all, let me say good morning and thank you for having us here. I brought along our Chief Financial Officer, who is Bo Irvin, our Budget and Fiscal Director, Ms. Lisa Parks, and our Human Resource Director, Mr. Brian Hughes. And thank you again for having us today and allowing us to be here to present our budget. As you all know, this agency has a non-negotiable mission to operate safe and secure prisons, provide effective community supervision, really all to, in the primary goal is to enhance public safety in our state. And both in the community as well in our prisons, our staff have an extraordinarily difficult job and often a thankless job. And I want to take this opportunity to publicly say thank you for what they do each and every day to each and every person who works for this department. Today, Governor, we'll be sharing our request for the continuation of our existing budget along with some cost increases that support our strategic and our customer-focused goals. And we'll also be talking about our efficiency plan. So the department's FY23 base budget is $1.2 billion. The pie chart summarizes where our budget appropriations are dedicated programmatically. As you see, 48% goes directly to our state-run facilities, 16% to the 4 private-run facilities, which is the light blue section, 13% local jail payments for state prosecutions, 11% to community supervision. Community supervision includes our day reporting centers, our community resource centers, sex offender treatment program, community supervision, and community corrections. 7% of our budgets for capital and maintenance funding, 3% to administration, and 2% to training and enforcement. We'll briefly touch on some of our cost increases and go into detail to highlight 3 of those requested cost increases that center around the Reentry Success Act, prison educators, and correctional officer salary enhancements also. We'll also cover our efficiency plan, which is targeted at $3.8 million. The department requested 23 cost increases with clear linkage to our strategic plan, as well as several that was supported by evidence of success and research. As instructed, we were intentional about investing in what works in order to improve our outcomes. We were able to provide research and impact for promising and proven effective programs. And I'd like just take just a second just to thank the Office of Evidence and Impact for working with us over the last several years and being able to accomplish some good data that supports some of the programs that we use in the department. The first 7 cost increases are really 48% of our requests are specifically related to contractual obligations for inmate medical and behavioral health, pharmacy, food service, private prisons, and inmate programming. The remaining cost increases are related to additional staff needed for people who take care of our electronic security within our facilities across the state, staff for the HISET programs, and special agents for the Office of Investigation and Conduct. In addition, we have several equipment cost increases to maintain our facilities across the state, as well as our community supervision offices. As mentioned, we'll only highlight 3 of our priorities. They are items 8, 9, and 10. And if time allows, of course, we'll be glad to cover any additional items you may have questions about. So moving on to the slide labeled Reentry Success Act, which is number 8 of our request. As you are aware, the Reentry Success Act was our administration's bill that was passed last session and became effective July 1 of this year, of our current fiscal year 2022. One section of the Reentry Success Act requires mandatory supervision for people being released from our facilities. This legislation allowed funding for the first year. It did not appropriate the funding at that time for the second year, and that's what we're requesting today, which is the impacts for the department FY23 budget that requires an additional $4.1 million for 26 probation and parole officers, as well as 4 managers and 11 psychiatric social workers to appropriately supervise those people that will be released as a result of this mandatory supervision. We're projecting in FY23 about 1,056 additional folks being released on mandatory supervision. The next year, about 1,043, and in FY25, about 1,800 that would require supervision. Moving on to the slide labeled standardized salary plans for TDOC educators. You know, our correctional teachers and our vocational instructors teach in a prison and are paid based on the geographical locale of that facility. These educators teach ABE classes, adult basic education, as well as high-set classes, career technical education, all of those programs. And what happens here in many cases, Governor, is we find that in some of our rural areas where some of our high security facilities are located, we find that those educators that are teaching what can be a very challenging population are some of the lowest paid teachers in the state because of the locale of the school or our school district within our facility. So what we want to do is standardize that. And this request of $2.8 million will standardize the salaries of those educators to the rate structure for certified teachers in the highest paid county, which is Shelby County. The salary for correctional principals is increased an additional 10% for supervisory duties. We currently have 158 educator positions, including principals, academic teachers, and vocational instructors. 30 of those positions are currently vacant. It's a vacancy rate of about 19%. In FY 2021, TDOC lost about 19 educators. 8 retired. We had 1 dismissal, 1 death, and 9 resignations for a turnover rate of about 14.2%. You know, and given the importance of education and what we do, this additional funding will enable us to recruit sufficient and high-quality educators to work in our facilities across the state. Moving on to slide labeled Security Series Salary Enhancements of $15.9 million request. Now, over the last 18 to 24 months, we've experienced considerable difficulty hiring and retaining correctional officer employees in our prisons. In FY 2021, our hiring fell by almost 40%, and we currently have approximately 40% of our correctional officer positions vacant. Peer agencies in Tennessee report an average starting salary of about $38,400, and private companies have also substantially increased wages due to the nationwide difficulties in attracting workers. When comparing Tennessee's correctional officer pay, we're number 5 out of the 8 contiguous states that border Tennessee. This $15.9 million increase would increase correctional officer pay to $37,654, and after 1 year, it would go to $39,541 as a correctional officer 2. This funding also increases the following positions for salary upgrades, which is all positions within the correctional officer series, as well as unit managers. And Governor, I'll be honest, the request for this salary increase, when I initially made this, I'm not sure that this will be enough. I don't know that this will make us competitive in the job market that we have today in the state that we live in.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
And let's talk about what we've done already previously too.
Yeah.
I just want to know, just for my historical context, what's happened over the last 3 years for correctional officer pay?
So if.
And the incentive thing that we did
Absolutely.
too.
And if you allow me, Governor, go to the next slide, and that's exactly what we do. We take a snapshot of and the chart shows some of the history here. As you can see, clearly how our vacancies continue to grow in FY20. We experienced an immediate and significant impact in the months following the implementation of our salary increases that went into effect, 2 years ago?
2019.
And how much was that increase at the time?
That was the starting salary, it was around 20% in the starting salary, but 27 to 32.5.
Okay.
So in the history, in the first 6 months, we hired about 16% more COs than the previous 6 months. And by December, we had reduced our CO vacancies by approximately 20%. And again, this pay raise, the last pay raise had an immediate and a significant improvement, showed an immediate and significant improvement. Once they were announced, just once the pay raises were announced, we saw a nice increase, both in being able to hire people and the people that, showed up for interviews. The hiring, and this all slowed down, especially after April. We ended the fiscal year having hired 38.2% fewer COs than the year before. Comparing March 2020 to March 21, our vacancies increased by 19%. So in response to the hiring difficulties, we implemented a $5,000 hiring bonus and a $1,000 retention bonus to boost recruiting. However, the impact of our hiring has been marginal. In addition, we are offering premium overtime for staff who volunteer to augment our security staff and work in our facilities on a part-time basis. We've had, since we started that process, over 200 people that have stepped up within the department, and a few outside that are retired law enforcement that have stepped up and come back to work on a part-time basis and helped us. Over 200 people have stepped in and provided, I think, almost 6,000 hours of service to the Department of Corrections.
So did you, as I listened to you talk, the signing bonus made no impact?
Very little impact. Very little. The 5,000, I thought that would help us significantly. And to be honest with you, Governor, we've seen marginal response to that. I was very surprised. We even had two.
What was the amount of it?
$5,000 sign-on
Yeah,
bonus.
so that's good to know.
Some people turned it down.
We had two people that turned the bonus. They went to work. They hired, come to work, interviewed. We hired those people, and they turned the bonus down because part of that bonus required payback if you left within a certain period of time. And one could assume, they come in with the intention of not staying. That they knew that they'd have to pay that back if they left within, a period of time. So when I talk to other directors across the country, Virginia's a $15,000 sign-on bonus. I know that Memphis Police Department's offering a $15,000 sign-on bonus. It's very difficult, obviously, to hire people in this field today, and I don't know the outcomes of those if they're seeing the results they wanted to see, but that just, I think, shows the measures that people are taking, or companies are taking, agencies are taking to try to hire people.
And let's unpack that just a little bit.
Sure.
So I know that I've spoken to people in other states, and you've spoken to people in other states, especially these states that are listed on your slide. And Virginia, Alabama, Georgia, Arkansas, Mississippi, a number of these states are having the exact same problem we're having. And it's not just Southeast. It's true nationwide, whether it's law enforcement or correctional officer level. Regardless of where those folks are stationed in their work, it's a challenge. Do we know that if we put $15.8 million into enhanced salaries, that we're not gonna still have the same problem? Is Virginia having the same problem? That would bump us up to Virginia. Do we know that we would be able to address the problem if we increase it at this level?
As I said before, when we first made the request for this budget, I felt like it was, at the time, adequate to improve the situation we were dealing with at that time. At this point, I don't know that it will resolve the issue totally. I don't know that I think we have to be competitive in the job market. I've said that. In Tennessee, we're so blessed to have the companies and all the industry that we have, but it makes it hard for corrections to hire people. It makes it hard for in some cases, state agencies to be competitive in the job market that we face today in Tennessee. Corrections is an important, vital role to the state of Tennessee. It serves a significant purpose for public safety. We must become competitive. And the money's not everything.
Right.
I understand that. There's other, leadership training opportunities and things that we will engage in, but if we're not competitive in this job market today, we cannot hire people. If we
So-
cannot hire people,
The 15 million, you said it bumps it to 37.6 and then 39.5. Just that compensates for, and that takes into account the second year bump to 39.5?
yes, sir.
They automatically roll
After
into,
1 year, yes.
The correction officer too.
What would the cost be to go immediately to 39.5? Do you know?
I don't know if,
The cost would be the same. The positions, I believe, are already funded at the higher level, because it is the same position. We take that into account and fund it at the higher level, so, but there would be no 1 year increase after that. We implemented that back in 2019 as well, because we saw that our 1 year turnover was really significant, and we wanted to program that increase in there to try to bring that number down. We have seen some improvement in the 1 year turnover, so whether it can be all of it attributed back to that or not, I don't know. But we could do that, but there would be no second year. We would have to program that in, and that would adjust all of the other titles above that as well.
I know one of the issues we've had is every time we try to do this and address all the other states, as you said, and then also do the same thing, and so we go from the top of the list back down to the middle now. We were bottom a couple of years ago when we made the other changes, but
But don't you think that also, instead of competing with other states, we're competing with,
yeah.
I could list off a number of employers?
Right. And so I think, to me, looking at other states isn't all the answer. I mean, we gotta be competitive here in the market that we're in. And so if the 40 number, the 39 number, do we think that's the market adjustment point? I mean, I know there's no way to know for sure, but
well, one of the things that, again, when I look at it, in the number of new industries that's coming to Tennessee, that's opening in Tennessee, the job market in West Tennessee alone, the mega site, and I was talking to the mayor of Lake County the other day, and he's talking about a solar farm going in Lake County, and I'm like, ooh, that's, and I forgot how many jobs that's going to bring to that county. In Lake County, at Northwest alone, today, we have over 200 vacancies, correctional officer vacancies, with a 60% vacancy rate, and with beds offline, prison beds offline, and again, without being competitive in the job market, we cannot hire people. And Commissioner, to answer your question, I don't think I don't know, but when you look at industry jobs that are much less stressful, certainly not the amount of overtime that we're seeing in our department today, where, these people are missing ball games, kids' ball games. They can't go home at the end of their shift. They're working on their days off because we have mandatory posts that we're struggling to fill. And again, I believe if we could be competitive in this job market, we could hire people.
But we don't really know the question is what is competitive.
Exactly.
So can I challenge you to do a couple of things? One, to the governor's question, remodel some of this based on the 39.5 initial salary with a bump after 1 year. Bring us some more options that.
And I also would think we should, just not to interrupt you, but I will, just because I think we can think through 1 year turnover and what are the things that we can do to engage with our employees. You know, we're obviously going to be paying them at a higher level now, so how can we engage with them in a way that addresses and gets feedback on why their turnover, what circumstances, what environment we can create for our workers that would help mitigate that. But go ahead.
The other thing is I would encourage you to reach out to the Federal Bureau of Prisons to see what their turnover is looking like. Because obviously from this chart, they have the highest starting salary of anybody. So I'd be curious, that's the one place I don't know if they're having the same challenges that the states are having. And I suspect they are, but that would be important information for us to have. And let me just say too, I know because of my engagement with your department that you are working really hard on some creative solutions, some career path, pipeline type solutions. I recognize that teenagers, 19-year-olds can start out with the Department of Correction and make that the basis of their career in law enforcement beyond. And if we can provide training to them in the first 3-4 years of their career for them to make career law enforcement officers in whatever path they choose, I think that's an important opportunity for us. And I know y'all are thinking about some creative ideas, some creative recruitment, creative retention strategies, and creative pipeline work. And
Yeah, in coordination with Department of Safety or
Yeah.
others to kind of
Yes.
say what is, because I do think that's important. If you give a 25-year-old a career path that leads to something that they are excited about as we recruit, the recruitment process.
Okay, be glad to do that. So at this time, I'd ask Lisa to talk about our efficiency plan.
Okay, so our efficiency plan consists of 3 items to reach our targeted $3.8 million. The first is to recognize savings of the expired debt service in Hardeman County. That's $1.3 million. The original contract included provision for the state to make the debt service per diem payments. It was a total of $5 million. That rate was determined by the capital cost per day for the 20-year bond that was sold to build that facility in '98. And then the department paid the final payment in 2019. In September of 2018, we met our fiscal year 20 reduction target by submitting a portion of that debt service payment, $3.7 million. This is the remaining budget specifically for the debt service payment, and we no longer need it. So second, we're going to recognize our savings related to the court cost reimbursement of $1 million. A law change requires submission of costs within 6 months, and the courts begin sending in documents timelier to comply with that law. So we've been able to review and process those court costs much quicker. These are paid to the state or by the state, and then the inmates reimburse us through the trust fund. We collected $2.4 million in fiscal year 21 and $2.5 million in 20. Therefore, we're budgeted $800,000 so we can do this funding shift for the overcollection. And third, we'll recognize the savings related to equity, and we can reduce equity by $1.5 million. That's less than 4% of the total equity, to meet this required target of $3.8 million. None of these items will negatively impact our mission.
How big is this salary equity number? Is it,
Right now, we're at around $34 million,
okay,
includes benefits.
okay.
So in closing, Governor, let me publicly say thank you for your leadership, for your passion for criminal justice reform, and for successful reentry. As we all know, across this nation, the high cost of incarceration has really become unsustainable, and never in my career have I seen such engagement at every level on this issue, from our business community to our rural communities, and in ways that would have seemed impossible years ago. Reducing the barriers to reentry makes our state a safer place to live and work. And Governor, your commitment to strengthening our approach to successful reentry fosters hope and the department's ability to achieve the true mission of corrections, which is really enhancing public safety in this state. And we appreciate your support.
Thank you, sir.
Subject to your questions, that concludes our presentation, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Brandon-
you.
Brandon, another question? Do you have any other questions?
I got a couple. What's our time?
We're okay.
We have good.
Prison population has been kind of affected by COVID and court case pileup and backlog and that sort of thing. What's happening there, and what's our expectation over?
So we're about 19,500 right now in-house population for our prison population. Our backup population is around 23 to 24. So we're not seeing a large increase at this time with our backup population. Of course, it's hard to determine what the courts may or may not do in the days ahead, but right now we're not seeing a large backup in our jails across the state. So,
Relatively flat.
yeah, it has been flat.
Inmate population.
Are we prepared for the day reporting and community supervision and the requirements that are going to be needed with the change in?
We are, Governor, we're excited about that. Of course, currently the 6-day reporting centers are operating great. We have budgeted for two additional, one in Chattanooga, one in Columbia, and we are working with General Services to get the physical plants set aside for those. We're seeing great success from those programs, those day reporting centers. Right now, the return rate on those people is very low, a little less than 20%, and that's great news, because you have to consider those are high-risk individuals that go into those programs. Those are people with serious substance use issues that the judge is, this close to sending them back to a prison bed, and these programs are providing relief, support, and truly a life-changing new way of life for people that complete these programs. So we're in good shape there. And I would say our programs across the state are doing exceptionally well, and I contribute, the department's rehabilitation section. Using a good risk and needs assessment that tells us what programs an individual needs based on that individual's risk to recidivate is science. That's best practice, and that's what we've been doing for a few years now, and we're seeing the results of that in our prison system. We're reducing recidivism numbers, 4% since 15, reduction for people coming out of TDOC facilities. We know it's higher for those jails, but last year, with the passage of the law that we discussed, we're going to pay our jails more if they're using evidence-based programs. We'll get the return on investment for that. So we're proud of that. We're looking forward to seeing that progress, and we've got a good team monitoring that along with TCI. We feel very confident we'll see some good numbers there and good success.
Your recidivism has dropped 4 points in 4 years?
It has, since 15. For TDOC facilities, we've seen about a 4% reduction. That speaks to the programs and the services that we're seeing, both in the prisons as well as in the community. Because remember, those people that leave that prison gate Many of them go back into the community under supervision. A lot of people are under supervision on probation, obviously. And using that same principle of using the strong R in the side and outside to determine programming, and then following up with a good strategy for holding people accountable for the programming and the supervision is working. We're seeing good results there.
You talked about, it triggered in my mind a question when you talk about leaving the prison doors. While someone is incarcerated, being able to serve them in ways that keep them from having to leave the prison doors, like health care services and whatnot. How's technology helping with that? Telehealth, for example, in our systems. Are we engaging more and more in technology to provide services for the incarcerated that makes that experience better for them and us and the public?
Absolutely. The telehealth, I looked at the numbers. Mo, you may have those, but I was surprised. I was at the number of occasions where we utilized telehealth, both from a physical health standpoint as well as mental health services in the state. What are those numbers?
In fiscal year '21, we had 1,466 telemedicine sessions conducted, 3,774 telepsychiatry sessions, and 1,036 telepsychology sessions. And we got 345,000 in this fiscal year to advance our telehealth capabilities, and we're in the process now of doing that. So once we are able to get those additional telehealth resources in place, these numbers should go up as well. So we're looking forward to that.
While we're talking about that, I know we funded the electronic medical records. Update us on where we are with that implementation.
It's our understanding that that RFP, we're hoping that will hit the street by the end of December, Commissioner.
And how long will that take? Do we know?
I think the RFP process will probably take a good several months to get through that and to have a contract awarded and online. So we're expecting to not have any funds expended probably until the beginning of fiscal year '23. Of course, we've submitted that for the American Rescue Plan proposal to replace those state dollars.
So we'll ask that question this time next year.
Again.
All right.
Just a reminder, last session, legislature changed the 1985 Sentencing Act, which means it changes any bills passed in this coming session going forward will change the way those dollars are allocated. And prior to that, any dollars that were appropriated were used to help fund the capital program for correction, and that will no longer be able to continue after that. So in effect, we'll have to fund the correctional capital projects from the normal general fund appropriation. So it's a huge change.
It's a big difference.
It's a huge change.
It is, David, when you consider the age of some of our facilities and the wear and tear that you see within in a correctional environment, and the cost of some of those mechanisms that we use inside, it's going to be significant, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, good point. Any other questions? You're good? Very good. Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
To learn more about the Tennessee Department of Correction, visit our website at tn.gov/correction and follow us on social media.